Coming up on Arirang News, North Korea, as widely expected, holds a military parade at midnight to mark the anniversary of the regime's founding. No speech from Kim Jong-un, however, and no new weapons on display. South Korea's Minister of Defense calls for more efforts to resolve the tensions on the Korean peninsula, speaking at the Seoul Defense Dialogue, a multilateral forum in Seoul. The EU also voicing support for dialogue at that forum. And we take an in-depth look at South Korea's plans to go carbon neutral by 2050. The country is making a big push to develop and adopt hydrogen fuel, with new concept vehicles and prototypes unveiled just this week. It's 5 p.m. here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. The Federal Reserve says the U.S. economy downshifted slightly to a moderate pace in early July through August amid the surge in COVID-19 cases caused by the Delta variant. In its latest Beige Book, the Fed said Wednesday that the deceleration in economic activity was largely due to declines in dining out, travel, and tourism across the country. It also said that inflation was elevated but steady, with the prices of metals and other industrial staples rising in most areas. Looking ahead, the central bank said businesses remain optimistic in the near term, despite widespread concern over ongoing supply disruptions and shortages. The South Korean government has announced another round of support for small and medium-sized businesses that have seen their shipping costs soar in the pandemic, making it hard to export their products. The Ministry of SMEs and Startups announced Thursday that it'll select more than 1,100 companies and subsidize their shipping, either by sea or air, by up to 20 million won each, about $17,000. As of this month, ocean freight rates are still high, 4 times as high as early 2020 and half again as expensive as early this year. The ministry said this will help companies stabilize their shipping costs. They can apply for the aid on the ministry's website. In South Korea, a huge proportion of accidents that occur on expressways are caused by large freight vehicles, a phenomenon linked in large part to long-haul drivers getting drowsy. To make the roads safer, the South Korean government has come up with an automated truck technology called truck platooning, which links trucks electronically to manage their speed and position on the road. Kim Sung-min reports.
Even for a veteran truck driver like Kang Min-jun, who has been taking the wheel for more than 10 years, long-distance driving is tough. He says having to eat and take a shower at rest areas is hectic, but the most difficult thing is keeping himself awake while driving.
It's not a small car. I've seen many huge vehicles have accidents because the driver fell asleep, so I know it's very scary. Me and my wife are both very worried.
In fact, out of the 582 deaths caused by accidents on expressways during the past 3 years, more than half were related to freight vehicles. And among them, 79% were caused by falling asleep or being careless while driving. To prevent that from happening, the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport on Thursday gave an online presentation to introduce automated truck operation technology, also known as truck platooning. Using wireless communication, truck platooning couples several vehicles together and enables them to travel in a coordinated train formation as if they were one vehicle. They keep a short distance between each other, meaning that road capacity can be managed better while also creating safe and comfortable conditions for drivers.
It will reduce the tiredness of drivers, so in turn reduce accidents caused by falling asleep while driving. Also, it strengthens competitiveness by increasing fuel efficiency by 6% while emitting less CO2.
Part of the event on Thursday was a live demonstration by 4 trucks driving along an 80-kilometer route on expressways at 90 kilometers per hour from Deokpyeong to Wonju. During the route, trucks joined and also decoupled in perfect order to show how the technology could be used flexibly in real life. The process was streamed live on YouTube, where the ministry also gave a detailed presentation about the technology. Kim Sung-min, Arirang News.
South Korea, like many other developed countries, has set a target for achieving zero net carbon emissions as part of the fight against climate change. President Moon has committed the country to going carbon neutral by 2050. That entails transitioning to renewable energy sources, one of the most cutting-edge sources being hydrogen. Earlier this week, in fact, Korea's biggest automaker Hyundai Motor unveiled some new prototype hydrogen cars and concepts and will phase out combustion engines entirely just a few years from now. For more on Korea's efforts to go carbon neutral, we have our Ji-young here in the studio today to explain. Ji-young, good to have you here today.
Good afternoon.
Well, Ji-young, hydrogen is one of the most talked about ways of achieving carbon neutrality. So tell us, why is it that some see this as almost a silver bullet in achieving that goal?
Devin, as you said, one of the solutions that we hear a lot about these days when it comes to tackling climate change is hydrogen.
In the future, production of hydrogen will be done using renewable energy, and that means we won't have to worry about depletion. Also, there will be less concerns over greenhouse gas emissions with hydrogen, so I believe hydrogen will be the future energy source.
But based on where we are today, the hype about hydrogen is yet to be justified. For now, hydrogen is mainly made by extracting it from coal and natural gas in a pollution-heavy process, giving it the labels brown hydrogen or gray hydrogen. Cleaner versions include blue hydrogen, which is also produced from fossil fuels, but it incorporates carbon capture and storage technology. Green hydrogen is where the electricity produced through renewable sources like wind and solar energy separate hydrogen from fresh water. Proponents of a hydrogen economy say the latest developments in green hydrogen production technologies, along with global efforts towards sustainability, are making it more appealing. According to data by McKinsey, 18% of the total energy demand by 2050 could be met by hydrogen production. The market for hydrogen and related technology is expected to have revenues of more than $2.5 trillion per year, with more than 30 million jobs created globally.
Well, Ji-young, you've described very thoroughly how hydrogen is produced and what it's all about. But one of the things that comes to mind, I think, for most of us for hydrogen is cars, transport more generally. So tell us about that.
That's right, Devin. In fact, South Korea's biggest automaker, Hyundai Motor Group, announced an ambitious vision for making hydrogen-powered cars and other products mainstream by 2040. The group pledged to stop selling combustion engine vehicles entirely in South Korea by 2040.
What does Hyundai Motor Group's vision for future hydrogen society look like? Our vision covers not only passenger and commercial vehicles, but also various types of transportation, such as trams, trains, ships, and urban air mobility. Our vision is to apply hydrogen energy in all areas of life and industry, such as our homes, workplaces, and factories.
Leaders of 15 major groups involved in the sector, including Hyundai Motor Chairman Jung Eui-sun and SK Group Chairman Choi Tae-won, gathered on Wednesday for the Korea H2 Business Summit. The new body aims to stimulate investment in the hydrogen sector and help Korea go carbon neutral. The discussions were held on the sidelines of South Korea's biggest hydrogen industry exhibition, which also kicked off on Wednesday. An air-purifying hydrogen fuel tram that can carry 100 people at once, a mobile hydrogen refueling station that can be used in remote areas, and a hydrogen-powered car that can recognize a driver's voice and change the position of the steering wheel. Visitors encountered all these at the H2 Mobility Plus Energy Show, where more than 150 companies and research institutions from 12 countries participated. At the event, Hyundai Motor Group revealed its first prototype of a hydrogen-powered hybrid sports car called the Vision FK, which can go from 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in just 4 seconds. Hyundai also unveiled an autonomous new container transport vehicle called e-bogie trailer drone.
As many companies from home and abroad gather at this event to share their technologies and meet new business partners, I believe it can be a growth engine for the hydrogen industry and help tackle climate change.
Well, Jiyoung, the events you were just telling us about did get a lot of attention around the world, especially the e-bogie vehicle for transport of cargo. But this focus on hydrogen is in line with Korea's vision for going carbon neutral by 2050. So tell us more about that vision for hydrogen in particular.
Sure, Devin. South Korea is expected to use 16.9 million tons of hydrogen in 2050. This is 7 times what the country consumed in 2015, according to the McKinsey report. One of the Presidential Committee on Carbon Neutrality's roadmap scenarios involves a 100% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions by 2050. That would involve a complete suspension of coal and LNG development, and these will be replaced by green hydrogen technology. Also, electric and hydrogen vehicles would make up 97% of vehicles in the country. But with the current lack of hydrogen refueling stations, there could be a setback in increasing the number of eco-friendly vehicles. Drivers at this refueling station have to make an appointment to fill up their hydrogen cars. One hydrogen car driver said, although he's happy with his car's fuel efficiency and lack of pollutants, a better refueling infrastructure is still needed.
One of the biggest drawbacks of driving hydrogen cars is the issue of refueling stations. There are only about 74 stations nationwide, so in the past, I had to travel 30 kilometers just to fill up the car.
The government plans to build more refueling infrastructure to help make drivers' lives easier and speed up the adoption of hydrogen cars. It expects the number of refueling stations to stand at around 310 next year and at roughly 1,200 in 2040. However, an expert suggested South Korea should diversify its investment in terms of future energy until green hydrogen can be mass-produced and hydrogen infrastructure develops enough globally, which could take about 20 years.
South Korea is seen to be at the world's top level in hydrogen vehicles and systems. About 3/4 of the automobiles produced by the country are bound for export. But worldwide, infrastructure to accommodate hydrogen cars is not fully developed, including a lack of refueling stations.
He added that development and widespread adoption of electric cars should be in place first, along with the development of hydrogen technology. But he stressed that in the long run, hydrogen is the way to go and is destined to become a major future energy source.
Well, if we look back and see how fast Korea has adopted generally electric car infrastructure, then hopefully it likely will be the case. Jiyoung, thank you for that thorough reporting today. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And new research shows the average retiree in South Korea has net assets totaling 200 million won, or around $171,000. And 86% of it is tied up in real estate, a problem, the researcher says, because they lack liquidity. This is according to an article published on the Korea Real Estate Board, an industry group under the Land Ministry. According to the article, retirees in 2018 said 86% of their assets were tied up in real estate, followed by financial assets, any businesses they might be running, and insurance products. The author of the article, Professor Kim Jong-un of Sangji University, says this position can be risky for retirees because they cannot respond quickly to emergencies when they need the money. Professor Kim did a study on the financial assets of retirees from 2006 to 2018 and says there needs to be a policy to help retirees liquidate their assets. New data suggests that gender equality at big Korean companies is improving, with women now accounting for more than 5% of executives for the first time. A report released Thursday by Korean researchers at Leaders Index and Women in Innovation says the proportion of female executives at Korea's 500 biggest companies as of September is now at 5.5%, an increase of 1% on year, and the proportion of women employees overall is up a fraction of a point to 27%. The survey measured aspects such as wages, length of employment, rank, and so on, and found that the top 10 companies were those making daily necessities, also banking and other services. Observers have attributed the improving position of women to a law passed this March requiring listed companies with assets more than 2 trillion won, about $1.7 billion, to have at least one female executive. The popular online streaming service from Disney will officially launch in South Korea on November 12th. The company announced today that it'll cost 9,900 Korean won, or about $8 a month. Subscribers will get access to a wide slate of content, including not only Disney, but also Marvel, Pixar, National Geographic, and Star. So far, Netflix has dominated the streaming market in Korea, but with a huge lineup of content, Disney Plus could shake up the market. Now, the latest on the coronavirus situation in South Korea. Today, the country had more than 2,000 new cases for a second day in a row. The authorities are concerned that the number could rise further with the Chuseok holiday coming up, when millions of people will travel around the country to see family. Jin has this report.
The number of new COVID-19 cases in South Korea exceeded the 2,000 mark again for a second consecutive day today. The country added 2,049 more cases for Wednesday. That's similar to yesterday's 2,048 cases, but it's an increase of 88 cases compared to last Thursday, indicating that the spread is not slowing down. 70% of the new cases have been reported in the Seoul metropolitan area, home to half of the country's population. Thursday is the 65th day that there has been more than 1,000 cases in the capital area. This puts health authorities on alert as the amount of movement, including going out, meeting people, and traveling, continues to rise ahead of Chuseok, a major national holiday when millions travel across the country.
We believe that the amount of movement maybe has increased due to expectations and hope of a return to normalcy. In the metropolitan area, the amount of movement is increasing as the number of cases continues on an upward trend. We take this as a very dangerous indication.
It's a vicious cycle. People come in contact with COVID-19 patients in non-metropolitan areas, and as the virus spreads in those areas, the people who return to the capital area also cause an increase in the number of cases here.
Experts continue to express concerns over this vicious cycle, which is expected to worsen the current wave of infections nationwide over the next 4 weeks, including the Chuseok holiday. Experts ask for people's strict compliance with social distancing rules as well as active participation in getting vaccinated. Jin, Arirang News.
North Korea overnight held a military parade to celebrate its founding anniversary. Leader Kim Jong-un was there, though he didn't give a speech, and the parade did not feature any new weapons like ICBMs. Our Kim Dami has the details.
As widely expected, North Korea held a midnight military parade to mark the 73rd anniversary of its founding on Thursday. The North state media reported on Thursday that civilian reserve forces, rather than regular troops, led the parade at Kim Il-sung Square in Pyongyang. The leader, Kim Jong-un, was at the event, but there was no speech from him. Instead, a party secretary, Lee Il-hwan, addressed the parade. There was also no mention of strategic weapons put on display during the event.
The parade is to strengthen internal solidarity, and it would be strange and inappropriate for civilian reserve forces to show off strategic weapons like ICBMs and SLBMs.
Thursday's parade took place for an hour, which is shorter than the last two military parades, suggesting the size of the parade was scaled down. And it is odd for Pyongyang to stage such a parade on the 73rd anniversary, considering it normally does one on every 5th or 10th anniversary.
It's to encourage loyalty to Kim Jong-un and foster internal solidarity, but the North is also showing another military source by showing civilian forces.
The latest midnight military parade was the third of its kind. The one in last October was to celebrate the ruling Workers' Party's 75th anniversary, and the one in January came after a rare party congress. The North State media is expected to release a recorded military parade on Thursday night like it did last October. An official from Seoul's Joint Chief of Staff said the South Korean military is closely monitoring and analyzing the moves. Kim Dami, Arirang News.
Also, for North Korea's founding anniversary, the regime has received congratulatory messages from China, Russia, and other countries. The North's state-run broadcaster Korean Central Television said Thursday that the messages were sent to Kim Jong-un by Presidents Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, each of whom said they value their ties with North Korea and hope to strengthen their cooperation in a range of sectors. Messages also came from the leaders of Cuba and Vietnam. South Korea's defense minister has called for more efforts to resolve the confrontation between the two Koreas and establish peace in the region. He was speaking at a multinational security forum, the Seoul Defense Dialogue, which kicked off this week. Kim Jong-un reports.
The opening ceremony for the Seoul Defense Dialogue 2021 was held on Thursday, marking the 10th year of the multinational forum of senior security officials. Due to the pandemic, this year's event is being held in person and online under the theme Borderless Security Crisis and Multilateral Response. South Korea's defense minister Seok in his opening remarks emphasized the need to fully resolve the inter-Korean confrontation that has persisted for the past 7 decades and work towards establishing everlasting peace in the region.
The government will work towards the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and establishing systems for peace and restrictions on inter-Korean military armaments via close consultation with the South Korea-US alliance and the international community.
The minister also said the government continues to push forward its Korea Peace Process initiative and the Inter-Korean Comprehensive Military Agreement forged in 2019, and that the military supports diplomatic efforts for denuclearization. A congratulatory message was sent from the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Josep Borrell, who also underscored the combined efforts for the establishment of peace on the peninsula.
On the Korean Peninsula, you can count on the European Union's support on the dismantlement of North Korea's weapons of mass destruction in a peripheral and investable manner. We continue to encourage the full implementation of sanctions, while at the same time we stand ready to lend our experience in finding diplomatic and multilateral solutions. We support international efforts to build sustainable peace and security in Korean Peninsula and in the wider region.
The forum will run for 3 days until Friday, covering Korean Peninsula issues, security in the Asia-Pacific, new infectious diseases, and cybersecurity. Kim Jong-un, Arirang News.
The European Union has urged North Korea to embark on a credible path toward complete denuclearization and to immediately comply with all relevant UN Security Council resolutions. At a UN meeting held in New York Wednesday, local time, to commemorate the International Day Against Nuclear Tests, the EU asked North Korea to further engage in meaningful discussions with all relevant parties to achieve peace. It said Pyongyang should end nuclear testing by signing and ratifying the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, or CTBT. The executive secretary of the CTBT organization also said the only way to prohibit nuclear testing is by making the treaty universal. Last year, the United States blocked more than $30 million of North Korean funds as part of an economic sanctions program targeting international terrorism. According to the U.S. Treasury Department, those funds were part of around $140 million in assets blocked last year from going to countries designated by the U.S. as state sponsors of terrorism, others being Iran, Syria, and Cuba. The amount for North Korea was a slight increase from 2019. North Korea had been off the list of state sponsors of terrorism for almost a decade, but was added back on in 2017. At the Tokyo Olympics this summer, North Korea was the only country not to send a single athlete. And so the International Olympic Committee has decided to ban the North from competing in Olympic sports until the end of next year. That means North Korea will have to miss the Beijing Winter Olympics coming up next February. Kim Yo-sun reports.
The IOC has decided to ban North Korea from competing at the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic Games, punishing the country for its Tokyo Games no-show.
Therefore, the IOC Executive Board addressed this situation and decided today that the National Olympic Committee of the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea is suspended until the end of the year 2022. as a result of its unilateral decision not to participate in the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020.
The committee explained that the North Korean Olympic Committee would not receive financial support during the suspension period and would definitely forfeit support that had previously been withheld due to sanctions. However, it added that the IOC did reserve the right to make decisions regarding individual North Korean athletes who qualify for the 2022 Winter Games. North Korea was the only country of some 200 competing nations that did not send athletes to Tokyo, citing the need to protect its athletes from COVID-19. To this, the IOC says it had warned the country of the consequences of not participating. While Seoul had hoped that the upcoming Winter Games would serve as an opportunity to re-engage in dialogue with the North, it's left to be seen whether this would be possible due to the IOC's latest decision. Kim Hye-sun, Arirang News.
And that does it for this newscast. Thank you for watching.